In this video, I'd like to explain the difference between 2D, 3D, multi-depth, and multi-level. To begin, we'll take a look at 2D. It's our most common. All the raised areas are on one level. All the recessed areas are on a different level, usually with a textured background. And it's the typical black and white vector artwork. In this example, this photo here, these are the raised areas. These would be the recessed areas. You can note there's a little bit of texture there. Next, we'll take a look at multi-depth. The maximum depth is the same as on the 2D. However, different elements can be at a level between the raised and the recessed areas. So in this example, the tree is at the highest level. The background is similar to the 2D, in which that's at the lowest level. But in this case, we have some mountains which are at a level in between the trees and the background. And that adds additional depth and dimension to the piece. The next is multi-level. Similar in a way to 2D, but in this case it adds an extra about 1/16 of an inch, and the multi-level elements are stacked on top of another raised element. So in this example, here's the recessed level, which would be similar to 2D. Here's the raised level, this inner circle here, and that as well would be similar to what's on 2D. However, in this case we have a stacked level. This is a level which is now over and above what you would get with a normal 2D. And lastly, we have 3D, or you could also look at it as calling it sculpted. 3D has various levels, not just restricted to the two, and has sculpted edges with smooth transitions. So in this photo, you can see there's a ridge along here, and it kind of scoops down this way. Over here, there's a peak along here, then it drops off on both sides. This part here is rounded, and you'll see a nice taper transition along here. So it's not limited to the straight up and down vertical walls that you would typically find on 2D. Now, when we look at it from the standpoint of cross sections, and we begin with the 2D, you'll notice that the height, the overall height is about 1/8 of an inch, and here's your raised layers, and here's your recessed areas. Whereas on multi-depth, it still is about 1/8 of an inch, and again you have your raised and your recessed areas, but now there's another layer in between the high and the low points. The next one is multi-level. In this case, it is very similar to 2D at this part here, but you'll notice that there's above this gray dotted line, there's another approximately 1/16 of an inch, and that's the stacked areas. So you can see there's a stacked area there, and there, and there. And lastly, we have the 3D or sculpted, and you'll notice that we're not limited to just 2 different levels or even just 3 levels like you would have with a multi-depth, but in this case we can have straight vertical walls as we have here, but we can also have gradual transitions, whether it be at an angle or at a curve, and that just gives great amount of additional depth and texture to a 3D piece, although obviously it is more complicated to create the artwork for that. Thank you.